welcome back to A Bookish Heart with Shauna. This is my most disappointing reads of 2019 video. And a disclaimer, the same as last time, this is just my opinion. If you liked these books, don't get offended by it. We're allowed to like different things. These are just books that I read in 2019 that I was disappointed by. Not necessarily the worst books that I read, just the ones that I was disappointed in. There's just a few books. I'm going to try to make this video as short as I can so it won't bore you, so I'll get right into it. I only have 2 of these in physical copy. The first one was an Owl Crate box, I think, book from October. The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. This one, I like the cover. It's like orange and black, like a Halloween theme. So that's pretty nice, but it wasn't that I hated this book. This book, I think, came in an Owl Crate box with another book. It was one of the boxes that had 2 books in it. This was perfect read for October because it was a spooky theme, but I didn't actually find it that spooky. And I was worried because I'm a person who doesn't like horror. I get scared really easily. I don't watch horror movies. I remember reading Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde when I was about 12 and crying, like hiding under my covers. I didn't want to go to bed because I was so scared. But I actually didn't find this that scary. It's very old. I think it was published in the 1950s. I don't know if it will say here, but 1959. Yeah, it was published in 1959. But it's just not really that much happens. There's a couple like ghostly encounters, but for the most part it just wasn't that scary. It wasn't that exciting. It wasn't completely horrible, but it wasn't a book that I just couldn't put down. So yeah, there's that one. This book I read recently, I think in November. It's I Hope You Got This Message, and it's by Farah Nazrishi, I think. This is the Owl Crate edition. This book I had very high hopes for. I actually love science fiction, and this was sold as a sci-fi YA, which I read a lot of adult science fiction, and Ender's Game, and The Hitchhiker's Guide, things like that, but I haven't read much YA science fiction, so I was interested to see how it will go, and it was disappointing. The concept of the aliens was very interesting about this. Basically, this alien society decides that in 8 days they're going to destroy Earth because that's their judgment that they're passing. There's like a council of 13 aliens, I guess, which is like a jury almost, and they decide. They punish like species for like intergalactic crimes, and they decide that humans are full of violence and have ruined the Earth for too long, and we can't be left to run free anymore, so they're just going to wipe us out because we just don't listen. And they give us, the message gets leaked, so humans get like an 8-day warning that the world is ending. And so it follows these 4 teens in different parts of the US and how they're reacting to the news that there's only 8 days left. I'm going to try to make this quick as I'm planning to do a full review of this book, but I just didn't like this book because parts of it were, the alien part really interested me, how the aliens responded to the humans, and I wanted more of that. But it was only a minor blip. Like, there wasn't much science fiction in this book. It was actually more of like a coming of age story, more about the teens and their lives. And the aliens were kind of like thrown in as like an afterthought, almost like a way to explain things. I also found the ending very disappointing, and it just didn't wrap anything up. And I'll get into that more in my review, but I didn't hate this book. I still found it fairly interesting. There were parts I liked, parts that were funny. A couple of the characters were well written, but overall, it just could have done so much more, and it was very disappointing. That's all I have for physical books. The next books on my list, there's 3 books that I was disappointed in that I don't have. The first one is another one that had a great concept and just didn't follow through. This was by Stephen King. It was a short book, like a novella. It's called Gwendy's Button Box. I actually read this from the library. It's a short book. It didn't take me long to read. The concept of this was very unique and very interesting, but it wasn't executed well. It kind of just died out. So it's about this girl, I think she's like 15, she's a teenager, her name's Gwendy, and she's kind of an outcast. She's like a little chubby and shy, and she basically, one day she gets this strange man in a park, meets her, and says that she's chosen, and he gives her a special box that's Gwendy's Button Box, and it has a couple buttons on the top. Basically, the idea of it is that if she pushes one button, the black button, I think, like horrible thing will happen, or someone will blow up, or the earth will blow up, or something. It will cause violence and destruction, basically. Then there's another button that when she pushes it, it gives her like a candy. And it's like these candies make her like popular and beautiful, and she doesn't realize it at the time, but from eating like the one candy a day that it will dispense for so many years, the book follows her over a couple years. It's like her life ends up being like picture perfect because of the box. And there's so much more in depth that could have gone, like who created this box, what is its purpose, why was she chosen, like why was she entrusted to have this box. And it's basically always this ominous warning hanging over her, like don't push the black button, but nothing is ever really explained, like why was this box created, what's the purpose behind it. I wanted to find out. I thought the concepts around it were so interesting, but it was never explained. And then in the end, it's kind of like, oh, we're taking the box from you and giving it to someone else. Thanks for your help, and bye. And the ending was just kind of like a cop-out. They didn't explain anything. So I found this book could have been very interesting, and it kept me reading because I wanted to see what was going on and what was going to happen, but nothing happened. And that's it for that. The next book was also a book I got from the library, which is Stormfront by John Sanderson, I want to say. Anyway, it's a detective novel, Virgil Flowers book, which is a series. This is book number 7. I hadn't read any of the other books, but the reviews of it said that the books they follow the same detective character, but they were kind of like a standalone, that you didn't really need to read them in order. So I was in the mood for like a detective thriller, so I read this one. It wasn't horrible. I actually liked this book. I think I gave it 3 stars. But the reason I was disappointed in it was just, it just wasn't what I expected. It wasn't as good as I thought it would be. It was just too predictable at parts. There was one review I was reading of it, which I thought was spot on Goodreads, and the person who wrote this review said that you can tell that his wife published this book. His wife wrote this book and published it under his name, which I didn't know at the time, but it has his name on the cover, but it's actually credited to his wife. His wife is an author, but not of mystery. She writes completely different type of books. I guess she had wanted to write a different style of book, so she kind of worked with him to get her name out there with a character that was already known, and which is good. But I haven't read any of the other books, but this reviewer said that this style of this book was very different and just not up to par with the other Virgil Flowers books, that basically it should have been published separately. Like his wife should have written a separate mystery, not part of this series that's already so beloved, and that will just let the fans down. Even though I didn't know this as I was reading the book, afterwards I thought, after reading that review about how his wife wrote it and published it under his name, so it's a completely different style, I found a lot of people were disappointed with this book, and I felt, I didn't hate this book, but this style was kind of jarring, and I'm disappointed in this book. So that's pretty much it for that. The final book on my list was one that I feel bad including. It's The Gown by Jennifer Robson, I think. I feel bad including this because I actually met this author, which is the first time I've met like an author, a real author of a popular book, when she came to the library in my town and did like a meet and greet, and it was very interesting to talk to. She did a presentation, and then we had lunch with her, and she talked about many different things, how she wrote the book, what inspired her, the publishing process, so I learned a lot about that. She was a very nice person. This book was like her dream to write, and she's written other books also, but this one, she's written historical fiction, like about World War II, but this one was like based on a true story. It was fictionalized, but it was based on Queen Elizabeth's wedding dress. It's called The Gown, but it was based on historical things about the royal wedding. Some characters, events and stuff was made up, but the main events that happened, and the dress, and about these women that were dressmakers, which I found a very interesting storyline. Like the women who created the dress, how much detail they put into it, what their lives were. I found that aspect really interesting. She actually went and met one lady who worked on the gown and interviewed her, and so she got first-hand knowledge of this. There's so many like pictures and news coverage about the royal wedding, but there's not really much info about the backstory of the gown. So it was a very unique concept. She got to go see the real gown and take a tour and learn about it, so that was interesting to read about all that. But I didn't hate the book. I enjoyed the book. I liked it. I gave it 3 stars. I just thought that there was I wanted more info about the gown, but there was a little more focus on like the side characters or their romantic relationships, which parties they were going to go to, and like the social lives of the different characters. And I didn't want that. I wanted like more about the actual gown, the facts, the interesting history of it. So I feel bad saying this is a disappointing book, because I thought it was a very good effort. It was well written, it was well researched, and this author is a very kind person. But I'm looking forward to reading more by her in the future to see if as her work improves. But yeah, that was my list of disappointing reads. So, and again, this video is 15 minutes, so I better let you guys go. But drop a comment down below. Let me know what was your most disappointing read of the year. Did you read any of these books? Did you have the same opinions or different opinions? I'd love to hear from you. And I'll be coming back soon with some book reviews, so check out some more content. And Happy New Year, everyone. Thanks for watching.